occurred at the community Easter picnic. My husband and my friend's mom were hiding in the tool shed. I caught them together in the shed during the picnic, just minutes after blessing the eggs. Could you ever look at an Easter egg the same way again? The pastel colors, once symbols of hope and new beginnings, now mocked me with their cheerfulness. It was April in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 2025. The annual community Easter picnic was in full swing. Children shrieked with laughter, hunting for brightly colored eggs hidden amongst the daffodils. The smell of barbecue filled the air, a stark contrast to the nausea churning in my stomach. My husband, Brian, 40 years old and usually so dependable, was acting odd. He kept glancing over at Marla, my friend Susan's 54-year-old mother. Marla, with her perfectly coiffed blonde hair and designer sunglasses, was usually the picture of suburban sophistication. But today, she seemed flustered. There was a strange energy between them, a silent conversation passing in stolen glances that I couldn't quite decipher. What was their secret? Brian excused himself, saying he needed to grab some more charcoal. Marla, a few minutes later, claimed she was going to help Susan's kids find more eggs. But they both headed in the same direction, towards the old tool shed at the edge of the park. A rusty, dilapidated structure, it was usually ignored, a forgotten relic of picnics past. Why were they going there? My heart pounded in my chest. A cold dread washed over me. Something was terribly wrong. I followed them, my steps muffled by the soft grass. The sun was setting, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to mirror the unease in my soul. Reaching the shed, I hesitated. What would I find? I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I pushed the creaky wooden door open just a crack. And there they were, inside the dimly lit shed, surrounded by gardening tools and cobwebs. Brian and Marla were kissing. Not a chaste peck, but a deep, passionate embrace. His hands were on her waist. Hers were tangled in his hair. The world tilted on its axis. The barbecue smell turned acrid in my nostrils. The cheerful shrieks of the children faded into a distant hum. I slammed the door shut, reeling from the shock. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. I wanted to scream, to confront them, to tear them apart. But I couldn't. I just stood there, frozen, the blood pounding in my ears. How could he? How could she? I stumbled away from the shed, my mind racing. What would you have done? Confronted them immediately? Called the police? Or would you have done as I did and run? I ran until I reached the safety of my car, parked at the far end of the lot. I sat there shaking, tears streaming down my face. I needed to talk to someone, but who could I trust? My best friend was Susan, Marla's daughter. How could I tell her what I'd seen? Later that evening, after forcing myself to eat a few bites of dinner, Brian sat across from me at the kitchen table. He looked tired, but otherwise acted like nothing had happened. "Did you have a good time at the picnic?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Yeah, it was fun," he said, avoiding my gaze. "Good to see everyone." "Did you spend much time talking to Marla?" I pressed, my heart pounding. He hesitated. "A little," he admitted. "We were just catching up." Just catching up. Was that all it was to him? A casual conversation? "About what?" I asked, my voice rising. "Just stuff," he said vaguely. "You know, family stuff." Family stuff? She wasn't family. Or was she becoming it? I couldn't take it anymore. "I saw you, Brian," I said, my voice cracking. "I saw you in the shed with Marla." His face paled. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He just stared at me, his eyes wide with panic. The scene was frozen in my memory. It seemed I would never be the same. What kind of world did I live in? "It's not what you think," he... "Oh, really?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm, because it looked pretty clear to me. He stood up, pacing the kitchen floor. "It was a mistake," he said. "A moment of weakness." A mistake? Was that all it was? A fleeting indiscretion? "How could you do this to me, Brian?" I asked. my voice breaking. How could you do this to us? He stopped pacing and looked at me, his eyes filled with remorse. I don't know, he said. I'm so sorry. Sorry wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. My mind raced. Do you think he meant it? Is there such a thing as a moment of weakness that can excuse such an action? Brian begged for forgiveness, promising it would never happen again. But how could I trust him? How could I ever look at him the same way? I confided in Susan, telling her everything I had seen. She was devastated, heartbroken. Her mother, with my husband, it was too much to comprehend. 2. Susan confronted Marla, who initially denied everything. But when Susan pressed her, Marla broke down, confessing to the affair. She claimed she was lonely, that Brian paid attention to her, that it just happened. Just happened? Susan repeated, her voice filled with disbelief. You slept with my best friend's husband. The betrayal cut deep, not just from Brian, but from Marla, a woman I had considered a friend, a mother to us both. The community was stunned. Whispers followed me around town. The Easter picnic, once a symbol of community spirit, now felt like a public shaming. I considered moving, disappearing somewhere no one knew what happened in the shed. But the worst was yet to come. One afternoon, a week after the picnic, I received a call from the police. They wanted to talk to me about some irregularities with my prescription refills. I was a physical therapist, and my license was my life. It was how I helped people, how I supported myself. The police explained that several of my patients had reported discrepancies with their prescriptions. The refills were higher dosages than what I had prescribed. I was shocked. I had never altered a prescription in my life. This had to be a mistake. But the police showed me the evidence. Altered prescription forms with my signature. My signature? It was a perfect forgery. Someone is trying to frame you, the detective said, and we think we know who. He revealed that Marla had access to my prescription pads through Susan. It seemed she had been systematically altering prescriptions and pocketing the difference, using my name to cover her tracks. Was this revenge or something else? I was horrified. Not only had she betrayed me with my husband, but she was also trying to destroy my career. But why? What was her motive? The detective suggested it could be a way to silence me, to discredit me if I ever revealed the affair. But I suspected there was more to it than that. I confronted Marla, but she denied everything, feigning innocence. But I saw the guilt in her eyes. She knew she was caught. What would you do? Turn her in, or let her go to protect your friend? My license was on the line. If I was convicted of prescription fraud, I could lose everything. But exposing Marla would mean shattering Susan's life even further. It was an impossible choice. I hired a lawyer who advised me to cooperate with the police. He said I had to protect myself, even if it meant hurting others. The police investigation revealed that Marla had been struggling financially for years. She had racked up a mountain of debt and was desperate for money. The prescription fraud was a way for her to make quick cash. But what about Brian? Was he involved in the scheme? Or was he just another victim of Marla's manipulation? I confronted Brian again, demanding to know the truth. He swore he had no knowledge of Marla's illegal activities. He claimed he was just as shocked as I was. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. He was too quick to defend Marla, too eager to downplay her involvement. One day, while searching through Brian's belongings, I found a hidden letter. It was from Marla, and it contained detailed instructions on how to alter the prescriptions. It also mentioned a secret bank account where the stolen money was being deposited. The letter confirmed my worst fears. Brian was involved. He was not just having an affair with Marla. He was also complicit in her criminal activities. I felt a wave of anger and betrayal wash over me. I had been so blind, so trusting. How could I have been so wrong about him? I confronted Brian with the letter, and he admitted that he had helped Marla alter the prescriptions, motivated by greed and a desire to impress her. He begged for my forgiveness, saying he was sorry, that he had made a terrible mistake. But I couldn't forgive him. Not this time. I turned both Brian and Marla over to the police. They were arrested and charged with multiple counts of prescription fraud and embezzlement. The trial was a media circus. The community was shocked and appalled by the scandal. Susan was devastated, struggling to cope with the betrayal of her mother and the shame of her father's actions. I testified against Brian and Marla, telling the court everything I knew. It was painful and humiliating, but I knew it was the right thing to do. In the end, Brian and Marla were convicted. They were sentenced to prison and ordered to pay restitution to the victims of their fraud. I lost my husband, my friend, and my faith in humanity, but I also gained something, a newfound sense of strength and independence. It took me a long time to heal from the betrayal. I went to therapy, surrounded myself with supportive friends, and focused on rebuilding my life. Eventually, I was able to forgive Susan, who was also a victim in this whole mess. She was going through a trauma. As for Brian, I don't know if I'll ever truly forgive him, but I've learned to accept the past and move on. The community Easter picnic is still held every year in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but I haven't been back since that fateful day in 2025. The memory of Brian and Marla in the tool shed is forever etched in my mind, a reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of betrayal. The betrayal was far worse than I ever could have imagined. I was able to retain my license, and I continued to work as a physical therapist, helping people heal and recover. It was a way for me to find meaning and purpose in my life after everything I had been through. Would you have done the same? Would you have chosen to expose the truth, even if it meant hurting those you loved? Or would you have tried to protect them, even at the cost of your own well-being? What is right? This was not the ending I wanted, but it was the ending I needed. It was a chance for me to start over, to create a new life for myself, free from the lies and betrayals of the past. I decided not to pursue revenge, despite the urge that gnawed at me. Revenge would have consumed me, turning me into someone I didn't want to be. Instead, I chose forgiveness, not for them, but for myself. Forgiveness allowed me to release the anger and resentment that had been poisoning my soul. The scars of betrayal will always be with me, but they no longer define me. I am a survivor, a fighter, a woman who has learned from her mistakes and emerged stronger on the other side. That is worth more than any kind of revenge. I am still healing, but I am hopeful for the future. I believe that good can come from bad, that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found. It takes time. Do you agree? And so, my story ends not with a tale of vengeance, but with a testament to resilience. I chose to rebuild, to heal, and to find my own happiness. That, in the end, was the sweetest victory of all. So, choose hope. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, redemption, and forgiveness, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more true crime narratives. What would you have chosen in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to protect yourself first. What are your values? The silence in my apartment was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos of the trial. The television flickered, showing a news report about the sentencing. I switched it off. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. Every detail of the case, every accusation, every tearful testimony had been dissected and broadcasted for the world to see. All I wanted was for it to be over. The rain was hitting the windows in sheets, mirroring the storm raging inside me. I walked over to the window and looked out at the city lights, blurred by the rain. It felt like a lifetime ago that Brian and I had moved to Tulsa, full of hope and dreams. We had envisioned a happy life together, a family, a future. Now that future was shattered, reduced to ashes by betrayal and deceit. Could those dreams have been wrong? I remembered our wedding day, the vows we exchanged, the promises we made, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Those words now rang hollow, mocking my naivete. I thought I knew Brian, but I didn't. I thought I could trust him, but I couldn't. The rain intensified, drumming against the glass. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, making me jump. I felt vulnerable, exposed, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to be blown away. I needed to do something, anything, to distract myself from the pain. I decided to visit Susan. I hadn't seen her in weeks. I knew she was struggling, even more than I was. After all, she had lost her mother and her connection with my former marriage. How can one cope with such a devastating series of events? The drive to Susan's house was a blur. The rain continued to fall, obscuring the road ahead. I felt like I was driving through a tunnel, trapped in a nightmare from which I couldn't escape. When I arrived at Susan's, the house was dark and silent. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding in my chest. Susan opened the door, her face pale and drawn. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. "Hey," I said softly, giving her a hug. She hugged me back tightly, tears welling up in her eyes. "Come in," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The inside of the house was a mess. Dishes were piled in the sink, clothes were scattered on the floor, and toys were strewn across the living room. It was clear that Susan was struggling to keep up with everything. We sat down on the couch, and I took her hand. "How are you doing?" I asked. She shrugged, avoiding my gaze. "I don't know," she said. "I'm just numb." "I understand," I said. "It's okay to feel that way." We sat in silence for a few moments, the only sound the gentle hum of the refrigerator. "I miss her," Susan said, her voice breaking. "I miss my mom." "I know," I said. "I do too." Even after what Marla had done, there was a part of me that still missed her. We had been friends for so long. I understood. How can there be so many feelings mixed with betrayal, especially when it comes to the mother of a dear friend? "I don't know what to do," Susan said, tears streaming down her face. "I feel like my whole world has fallen apart." "It will get better," I said, even though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. "It takes time, but it will get better." We talked for hours, sharing our pain, our fears, and our hopes. It was comforting to know that I wasn't alone in my grief. We were both victims of Brian and Marla's betrayal, but we were also survivors. We would get through this, together. As I was leaving, Susan gave me a hug. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "Anytime," I said. "I'll always be here for you." Driving home, the rain had stopped. The clouds had parted, revealing a sliver of moon. I felt a sense of peace, a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew that I could face it, with Susan by my side. Back at my apartment, I found an envelope slipped under my door. There was no return address. It was a plain white envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. "Watch your back." My heart pounded in my chest. Who sent this? Was it Brian, Marla, someone else connected to the case? The message was vague, but the threat was clear. Someone was watching me. Someone wanted to scare me. What would you do? Would you ignore it? Or would you alert the police? I immediately called the police and reported the threat. They took the message seriously and promised to investigate. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I felt like I was being followed, that someone was always watching me. I started double-locking my doors, checking my windows, and avoiding walking alone at night. I was living in a constant state of fear. One day, as I was leaving work, I noticed a strange car parked across the street. It was a dark sedan with tinted windows. I didn't recognize the car, and it made me feel uneasy. As I walked to my car, I noticed that the sedan was following me. It stayed a few blocks behind me, but I could see it in my rearview mirror. I was terrified. I didn't know who was in the car or what they wanted. I drove straight to the police station and reported the incident. The police took my statement and promised to increase patrols in my neighborhood, but I still felt unsafe. I decided to take a self-defense class. I wanted to learn how to protect myself if I was ever attacked. The class was empowering. I learned how to use my voice, my body, and my surroundings to defend myself. I also met other women who had experienced similar situations. We shared our stories, our fears, and our hopes. It was a supportive and encouraging environment. Gradually, I started to feel more confident and less afraid. I realized that I didn't have to be a victim. I could take control of my life and protect myself. One evening, I was walking home from my self-defense class when I noticed the dark sedan again. It was parked across the street from my apartment. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I couldn't run. I had to confront whoever was in the car. I took a deep breath and walked toward the sedan. As I got closer, the driver rolled down the window. It was Susan's ex-husband, David. I was shocked. What was he doing here? "What do you want, David?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I just wanted to talk," he said, "about Marla." David explained that he suspected Marla had been hiding money from him during their divorce. He said he had been following me, hoping that I would lead him to the hidden funds. I told him that I didn't know anything about Marla's hidden money. I swore that I hadn't seen it. He looked doubtful. I could tell he didn't believe me. "I know Marla," he said. "She's always been greedy and manipulative." "You will find nothing with me," I explained. David was a wild card in the entire situation. Could he be believed? Did he know anything? "I just want my money back," he said. "I deserve it." I knew that Marla's greed had caused a lot of pain and suffering, not just for me and Susan, but for David as well. The truth was that David's motives might not have been altruistic, but he wanted restitution from a liar. The more I considered it, the more I understood his motives. "I think you should just stop and look forward," I said to him. "You have a whole life ahead of you." He nodded slowly. I could tell he was beginning to understand that there were no answers for him here. After the conversation, David drove off, and that was the end of him. After that night, I decided to leave Tulsa for good. The scars of betrayal were too deep. The memories were too painful. I needed a fresh start, a new beginning. I packed my bags, said goodbye to Susan, and drove away. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I was leaving the past behind. Years passed. I eventually settled in a small town in Colorado, surrounded by mountains and fresh air.